Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's Chris, and just want to come and talk to you today. It's been a little bit, but um, today is a big day for me. 10 years ago, today, 1/14/14, uh, was my first day of sobriety. And um, needless to say, I was in rough shape, rough fucking shape. And the idea of going a few hours without having something to drink was insane. It'd been a good 4.5, 5 years where I was drinking all day, every day, from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep. Um, I was drinking, and it wasn't even celebratory. It was just to maintain. That's where I was with it. There were even some times where I would wake up in the middle of the night just to take a couple shots to go back to bed. Like, that's where I was with it. My capacity for reality and life at that time was zero. But nevertheless, I still had friends. I still had a job. I still had a place to stay. I wasn't on the street, homeless or anything like that. I still played soccer from time to time, and um, on paper I could fool a lot of people like I still had my shit together, but inside, I think the three best descriptors are just overwhelmed, petrified, and just felt absolutely alone. Like, so alone that it hurt. And the worst part about it is, um, I wanted to ask for help. I wanted to scream for help sometimes. You know, there are people, whenever anybody would ask me like how I was doing, hey Chris, what's up, man? I'd want to sprint over to them, like grab them by the side of their head and shake them and be like, yo, I'm fucking freaking the fuck out. I don't know what I'm doing. Help me, show me what to do, da 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 da. I just wanted to spill my heart to them, man, because in my heart, it was a fucking nightmare. It was like one of those nightmares where, you know, you're being chased or something like that, and, you see somebody that could help you and you go to scream and nothing comes out, like that level of panic. That's how I felt every day, especially in the morning, having to do that Groundhog Day all over again. And it was just exhausting. And anybody that has dealt with addiction or is dealing with addiction on any level understands that it it grinds you, man. The shit kills you spiritually well before it does physically. And uh, you know what I was thinking about recently, I hadn't thought about this in a while. This was probably 4 years before I got sober. I was back in South Carolina, and my mother had passed away in 2009, and that's when my drinking escalated exponentially. It went from, like, working in a bar, having some drinks, maybe a few nights a week. I'd tie one on, have a couple drinks pretty much every day, but I could control it. It wasn't even that big of a deal. But after she passed away, it was I didn't draw a sober breath at all, and I'd been going hard for, I don't know, a few months after she passed away, and I tried to, I don't know, just take like a day off. And at the time, I didn't know anything about withdrawal or the dangers of quitting cold turkey. You've been drinking every day. I just quit. And I remember over the course of the morning, I just started feeling like stressed out and like kind of panicky. Like my chest was getting tight, and I used to be asthmatic as a kid, and so I thought I was, like, I don't know, having like asthma issues or something like that. And long story short, I ended up, it got so bad that I ended up calling 911 on myself. Like, that's how panicky I was. And, as soon as the ambulance got there and I sat down in the gurney and started to tell him what was going on with me, I went into a full-on seizure, head to toe. And no one ever tells you how much it hurts to, like, flex every muscle head to toe as hard as you possibly can. That shit fucking hurts. And I ended up passing out, and I woke up in the hospital, and I had to stay in ICU for the weekend. And the night I got out, I immediately went to get some alcohol. And I went home and drank by myself, and it was not celebratory. And I just remember feeling like a 18-wheeler without brakes. Like, I was out of control, completely out of control, and I still have to maintain this facade like I'm okay. And it was years that I spent like that. And I'm very fortunate that I had a handful of good friends that looked after me and helped me out from time to time, and inspired me to continue painting this, that, and the other. And um, thankfully, I made it to my first meeting, and I was not looking. I did not want to go to that first meeting at all, and I wasn't looking to make friends or find hope or anything. I didn't know what the fuck it was going to be. I just was so petrified, man. I was scared. I tried quitting a billion times, and it wasn't like I was out there like, oh God, why's my life falling apart? Like, why is everything not working out? I knew why it wasn't working out. It was because I was drinking and I couldn't stop drinking. It didn't matter if I changed where I lived, and I tried, changing what I drink, when I drink, who I drank it with. Maybe it's, I'm in the wrong relationship. Maybe I'll be alone. Maybe I'll sleep around. I tried everything. And every experiment, I ended up with the same exact result: me drunk and further away from anything I ever hoped to be. Um, it was perplexing because I'm a relatively smart guy, and I played sports and I went to college, and I'm an artist, and when everything outside of alcoholism, I could rely on my intellect. I could rely on my passion and my drive and my consistency. And over time, I could accomplish goals and meet goals and achieve things. But when it came to drinking, the more I tried to figure it out, and the more I tried to rely on myself, and the more I dug myself into a pit away from reality and sweeping shit under the rugs, the worse it got. The worse it got. And so I'm very thankful that I made it to that first meeting. And what I found in that first meeting was amazing. It wasn't anything that I thought it was going to be, but what made me stick was the level of honesty in that room, man. It was people talking about everything before that I wanted to scream about and grab a friend and tell them, like, help me the fuck out. Like, all that shit that I was ashamed of and I hated myself for and I couldn't stand even my own reflection over. They were talking about this shit freely, openly. Like it wasn't even a big deal. Like they were even laughing about some of this shit. And this was the shit that I was taking this shit to the grave. I wasn't talking about it. Like I wasn't copping the shit. I didn't even like to let myself think this shit. And they were talking about it freely. It was just so fucking refreshing that it was enough for me to come back another meeting. And I didn't start out going to meetings and raising my hand and saying, I'm Chris, I'm an alcoholic, and staying after meetings and chumming it up and just being whatever. Like I learned that by going to meetings. I learned how to be honest going to meetings. And the toughest part about getting sober for me, and still can be challenging to this day 10 years later, but definitely early on, was feeling, man. Feeling all that shit that I ever drank over or swept under the rug. My mother's death. Like I didn't even look at a picture of my mother. Didn't look at a picture of my mother for 4.5 years. I had one picture in my room, slightly turned away, so I catch it out of the corner of my eye every now and again, but I couldn't, for any number of reasons. I felt like if I dealt with reality, certain realities, like I would just crack in half, man. And that was a big fear of mine getting sober, is feeling that shit. And there are times where I'd be okay, I'd be fine, but then there'd be other times where it felt just like a tidal wave coming at me, and I just want to swan dive into a drink, man. But the best thing that I did was come to as many meetings as possible. They told me 90 meetings in 90 days. And I probably came to 200 meetings in 90 days. And I found a lot of relief. And it was good to get to know people and connect to people that I could relate to about real issues on a visceral level. But the real relief didn't come till I'd gotten to the action of the recovery, the fourth step and beyond, the inventory, and getting a sponsor and sharing that story from my fifth step, and even getting to some of the amends. It wasn't until I got into the fourth step and beyond that I started to really get the relief, man. Because prior to that, it took me about 4.5 months, but prior to getting to the action of recovery, I was still just white knuckling it, man. I still wanted to drink, and I got to the point where I could come to 4 meetings a day and I still wanted to drink, and I still was replaying all the shit that I drank over, and now I'm starting to accrue new shit on top of that, and it got to the point where I could taste the next drink. I could taste it, and it scared me, and I had a sponsor and I had friends that were telling me what to do, and I was still trying to think about it. I was still trying to figure out what God is, what's my higher power. Like, I felt like I needed to really understand and feel what a higher power is, and understand why I need to write this stuff down and really comprehend everything before I move forward with the action. And what I've learned is that the relief that I found in early sobriety, and the relief that I've found time and time again over the last decade, comes from the action. It comes from connecting. And how I connect is I got to reveal myself. It's the polar opposite of how I used to conduct myself out there. All these little secrets, or maybe I'll tell the truth, but I'll only tell 98%. Who needs to know about that other little 2%? What other 2%? Like, that's the 2% that I need to share with somebody else and write it down and get honest with. To thine own self be true. And that's what the work helps me do, is get honest about what's going on with me, how I'm showing up in life, not what is happening to me, but how I'm responding to it. And over time, when I'm responding to life in a favorable, honest, balanced way, my life flows. I really get relief. I'm telling you right now, like, why I drank, I'll tell you this, that first drink that I had, that shit changed my life. Who's kidding who? And I know that's not everybody's experience, but for me, that first drink was that last little jigsaw puzzle. It was a spiritual experience. It shifted my consciousness. It was the first time that I was ever out of my head, that I was ever free of my thoughts, that I wasn't replaying shit from the past, and I wasn't tripping over shit from the future, and I wasn't obsessing about what other people think about me, and I didn't feel like everybody had a manual to life but me. I didn't feel inadequate. I felt even. I felt present. I felt like I could just show up to life, and I could just be myself. And that was a real experience, but it was synthetic at the same time. What I get for real now on the other side of this work and recovery is exactly what I thought I found in drugs and alcohol. It's freedom from myself, freedom from my thoughts, freedom from fear, freedom from selfishness, and it's nothing new. Every time I work the steps, it's the same things. It's always me. That's the biggest shift. No more playing the victim, no more pointing the fingers, no more feeling sorry for myself. If I'm not the solution, there is no problem. If I'm not the problem, there is no solution. What a fucking blessing it is to know that when my life gets complicated and I get overwhelmed and I feel like crawling into my little shell and shutting the world out, that I don't need the world or anyone in it to act a certain way or believe a certain thing about me. If I'm willing to be honest with myself about how I'm showing up, and I share that with somebody else, and then I turn my attention towards somebody else, I get free. And it's real. I would not be here sober 10 years later if it weren't. I mean, for fuck's sakes, I didn't even think I could be creative. That was probably the third or fourth most powerful thing that kept me drinking every day, is I thought I wouldn't be creative anymore if I didn't have alcohol in my life. I mean, literally, something that I've been doing my entire life, that I could do with my eyes closed, and I've been doing since I was a child. I didn't think I could do it without alcohol. That's how twisted I was around this thing. And what I've realized also is that the one thing that I need to create, the one thing I need to be free, the one thing I need to connect and show up and enjoy life and live to the fullest and be grateful. All I need is me. The one thing I needed to participate